Yo, yo, what's up, everybody? This is Luke with Owls Radio, and I'm here today at the Champs Trade Show, and we decided to do a podcast. I happened to run into a friend, Eric from PharmaEx, Oregon, and Eric, if you want to just say a couple words there, introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm Eric Berkovitz with Pharmax, Oregon. We do some stuff in the hemp space and some stuff in the recreational space in Oregon. And yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to talking to you.
Cheers. So Eric actually makes some really fire extracts. We were chatting about hydrocarbon extraction and isolating CBDA, and just talking about the industry as a whole. And we have a lot in common. Obviously, being in Oregon is huge. And yeah, Eric is more in the recreational side of the cannabinoids, where we're sort of more on the hemp side. But you're also doing the hemp terpene. So why don't you talk to us a little bit more about your business and
You
some
want
of
me
the things you
to
work
start
on?
with kind of my background, like how I got here? Okay, so I started out in Texas. I've got Tourette syndrome, so I've got like a little twitch in my shoulder, which was causing like chronic muscle fatigue and some other like issues. And cannabis I found helped me. And in Texas, it's dangerous there. I mean, at least at the time, 10 plus years ago, it was illegal. So we got into making edibles and extracts just because it was a little, at least at the time, a little more inconspicuous. I got arrested for cannabis possession a couple times in Texas, and I ended up moving to Oregon after I got those all cleared up, and we got a medical card and had a medical grow for quite some time, and also got into hydrocarbon processing through the Skunk Farm people who are based out of Portland, Oregon.
So tell me, what was that like? Right, we've just gotten to the. This is probably, when I first came over to the United States. I remember my first butane extract was in a PVC pipe, and we I remember seeing like this oil come out and being like, holy crap, this is cannabis oil, and this, like, what the hell is this stuff? And I was thinking back now, I mean, we were watching this thing, we put all the cannabis inside, open blasted it. We let that thing sit for probably like 5 minutes, 10 minutes in the sunlight. Thing was still bubbling, and we put it on a joint, and we're like, this is the best stuff ever. But it was probably just laced with butane. So what was it like? Obviously, again, I come from Ireland, so the thoughts of even having any sort of perception as to like what it was like.
It was crazy. So when I was in Texas, I'd actually found their website. They'd been going for a year or two, posting on blogs. It kind of started open.
So can we just talk briefly what Skunk Farms was for everyone who really doesn't even pre-Future 4200?
They've kind of left behind and forgotten about. And anybody who's like an OG or
knows.
Like really running large-scale hydrocarbon, that's where they found it. I mean, so what Skunk Farm is they had a WordPress blog. JD, and he goes by Grey Wolf, and Eloquent Solution is Carla Kay, and then they had some other people, Kate and Joe as well. And they had a blog that was basically cannabis science, how to decarboxylate oil, how to winterize, like do alcohol extractions, and they started doing butane. They started open sourcing basically what became the first closed loop systems sometime around 2011. Or so, and they were doing it out of like brewing equipment, SS304 sanitary steel and those kind of tri-clamp connections, which is essentially what it is now on a larger scale. And they just open sourced it. They showed people what they were doing, their shopping lists, how they put them together, and then they started doing classes and further instruction, and really a lot of what we're doing today, what all the other people are doing today is based on what they had done. And unfortunately, about 3 or 4 years ago, they got tied up in a lawsuit just because they brought on some financial partners, and it got weird. And it's over now. I don't know exactly how much I'm allowed to say about it. But basically, the Skunk Farm website isn't run by that team anymore, and it stopped getting built on. And, the industry ran with Future 4200 and, other things. Some people go on Facebook groups or Reddit groups or whatever. But, I mean, they were the giants that were standing on their shoulders right now. They really innovated a lot, from hydrocarbon extraction to post-processing, like, decarboxylation and other stuff. But the first time I met them, I'd already kind of played them up in my head as like, these crazy scientists.
Yeah.
And I show up at this house in southeast Portland, just a little unassuming house, and I go there for a class. When I bought my first MK3 terpenator, it had a 1/4 pound, material column.
Whoa.
Yeah, right, huge, right? And Carla Kay answers the door. Nice older lady who kind of reminds me of my grandma. And she's like, "Come in, take a dab." And she's got an e-nail, which I'd never seen before. It's like 2013. Yeah. She had like 30 jars on her table, like baby food jars that were just full of extracts. And she was just dabbing people out, just pea-sized dabs. Everybody's just laying on the floor and having more dabs than they'd ever had before. And then she's like, "All right, let's go in the backyard and do this class." So she had like an enclosed deck on her backyard that we, learned how to run a closed loop on. And Cyclopath was there.
Oh, nice.
A couple other people that I've like seen grow and do other cool stuff over the years. A lot of us got our start in her backyard.
Literally.
And since then, I've made good friends with them. I've spent a lot of time with Carla Kay, and she's helped me a lot in my endeavors. She was part of the PharmaEx team for a while. And then JD, he's a little bit more elusive. He's a loudmouth online, but he's really quiet and reserved in person. And I haven't got to spend as much time with him as I have with Carla, but he's just a wealth of knowledge.
And so tell me, Skunk Farms comes in, you're starting to learn, you're on the medical side, and then what was the change for you? What was the change for you then?
So OMMP didn't have processing licenses,
which is medical for everyone.
Medical growers, patients, caregivers, and dispensaries.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they started doing the medical licenses for processing, I got one of those. And about a year later, recreational came in, and everybody switched over to rec. And there was only like 10 of us left, and it just kept going down and down and down. And I found myself in 2017 as the last medical processor. Mm-hmm. And there were still 3 dispensaries left that were OMMP only, and all the OMMP only growers that didn't really have any routes to like move their medicine were coming to me. So I was doing that with Carla Kay for quite some time. We were doing the extracts and then also post-processing and making, edibles and sublinguals and tinctures and all that stuff for the medical market at much higher doses than we're allowed to do now.
Sure.
And basically around the beginning of 2020, the last medical dispensary essentially was shutting its doors, and we still have the growers and the caregivers and the patients, but that program as we know it doesn't exist anymore, really. So I was forced into the hemp industry, really. So we kind of took a hiatus from doing like medicine and extracts and moved into the hemp terpenes. We had a small still, like a new house still, and that was our first year. 3 years ago, we did hemp terpenes. And over the years, we've kind of grown and expanded into like larger mint tubs and industrial steam stills.
So can we slow it down for somebody who has no idea, right? Or start talking. So just again, I like to really go from the roots here. So terpenes, how do you get to the point where and there's all different varieties of terpenes, right? And purification of terpenes. So can you just give a brief walkthrough for somebody who doesn't really get, what terpenes are, even terpenes are, and how you extract them?
So terpenes are really simple hydrocarbons made out of isoprene units, and basically are what give cannabis most of its flavor and smell, at least as far as we really understand in the cannabis industry now. And they're basically similar to what a lot of people know as essential oils, lavender oil, mint oil. It's a clear extract that kind of looks like water, and it's just pungent, super, super strong, concentrated smells. And what we do is, and there's a couple ways to go about it, but we use steam distillation. So we'll put water and plant material in a vessel, add heat, and then we'll collect the steam in a condenser. And then basically you'll have a condenser full of water and oil, and the terpenes are lighter than the water. They'll float to the top, and we'll just kind of scoop those off.
It's just like a separation funnel or something, and just
essentially a separatory funnel.
Yep.
You can either drain the bottom or pour off the top, depending on your setup. And then, there's some moisture in there, so we use, desiccating salts and further filtering. And then we try to store them really cold with inert gas on top, just so they don't degrade, because terpenes degrade real quick. Because I'm sure anybody who's dried their own weed before has smelled it in the field, and then smelled it again once it's been drying for 2 days, and then smelled it again like a week later.
Smelled it again in like a year's
It
time.
keeps, it keeps changing, and a lot of those monoterpenes are super volatile, and some people think unpleasant, a little harsh to smoke too. So that's essentially what the terpenes are. We use them mostly to flavor distillate cartridges.
And now that we're talking about the different terpenes, I think this sort of segues nicely into just talking about the different terpenes that we really receive depending on that curing process. So I'm not sure if you've been following lately, but there's definitely a push, at least, that some of the more boutique growers are basically saying, live resin is actually doing harm to this industry in terms of there's no real basically, I suppose everything stops at the point when the flower is finished growing, because it's just chopped and frozen, and then it's run, and it's basically you're dealing with, I don't want to say basic terpenes isn't really the right way, but terpenes at the same time, just like cannabinoids, will change and evolve into other terpenes. So if you have a live resin, boom, off the nose, smells great. And I mean, I can't say that there's many live resins that I've said that I wouldn't like.
Yeah.
But I think that they all smell amazing. But then going deeper into it, it seems like there's a whole other level of actually curing the bud and having those terpenes and then running that material.
I think a lot of when the entourage effect we talk about, which if you don't know is, the sum of the cannabinoids you consume is greater than all of its parts. So if you have THC versus THC along with all these other cannabinoids and terpenes, when you have them all full spectrum, obviously you're going to get, well, I say obviously, but if you don't know, you will get, a more typically longer lasting, stronger, effects. So what I think is that when we cure our cannabis, if you look at testing, you can have flower that stays mostly THCA for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, I've had older flower that I test, and it's still mostly THCA. You're not seeing a lot of THC. You're not seeing a lot of CBN. Sure. I mean, decarboxylation takes a lot of time and energy, a lot of energy. I mean, we use more heat, to get it done faster. But the terpenes are really volatile. And I'm thinking... when you have those triterpenes and those sesquiterpenes as your dominant terpenes, and a lot of those monoterpenes have kind of dissipated, that's why more cured stuff typically giving you that stonier feeling, that more sedative feeling, more so than the cannabinoids.
And obviously, though, as time goes on, that those terpenes are definitely going away.
Absolutely.
There's no question about it.
That's the whole curing thing, because I mean, we kind of cure it based on smell, really. I mean, the cannabinoids aren't changing all that much.
Yeah, I wonder is the curing process different if you were to do fresh live resin, you do the initial extraction, and then there's a curing post process after the fact. You have it in a jar, you burp it once a day, whatever it is, treat it just like you would with the buds versus get the buds. Because I'm all for let's condense this bud down right now, because we just dropped a few acres and we need to get this thing condensed ASAP before it is turning into biomass, right? And so it's a very fine line of wanting, and I think freezing it is a wonderful idea because it takes off a lot of the headache. Obviously you need a big container to freeze it, but sort of you don't need to be too concerned about how you're going to dry it. However, water content getting into your material is another tough one, because it's frozen.
Our emulsive after the fact. We're removing moisture after the fact to keep it out of our butane.
Yeah.
But, when you're running, I guess if you keep everything really, really cold and you take some extra precautions, you can minimize it. But like you see with rosin, something that has a lot of moisture in it kind of goes rancid. It causes oxidation and rancidity and weird flavors and smells that you don't really get when you don't have that moisture in there.
You also got those fats and lipids in the rosin too, so it's I don't know. There's a good in between. I think I'm appreciative now of all extracts. I definitely think that rosin gets me higher than anything though. For whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but there's definitely something with rosin, and it's just like
It's more of a full body effect. It's a little on the
yeah.
stonier side.
But if you ever doing winterization of some nice bud, I mean, the fats and lipids smell wonderful. A lot of the time they smell wonderful, and I suppose maybe you could. I'm thinking purify the fats effectively, right? By maybe spinning it in a centrifuge or something like that to really make sure that all your terpenes, cannabinoids are out of there.
I think a lot of cannabinoids are left in those wax.
Yeah, there's
patties.
a lot.
I haven't actually taken any wax to a lab. Now I've got some in-house testing, so we'll play with that a little more. But
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot, and the terpenes as well, which maybe people can use for like lotion or candles or something, soap. I don't know.
I mean, the fats and lipids are good. I mean, if you're doing a topical, if you're doing even a tincture to some points, you want those fatty acids in there.
I think it aids the entourage effect. I mean, we don't know exactly what does. Do you know how they like work backwards in Israel? Do you know what they're so Israel's got like 100 strains or whatever strains, and those are like the approved strains they work with. And what they'll do is let's say there's a group of kids with a certain type of seizure. Mm-hmm. They'll give them, all sorts of different flour until they find a flour that like 80% or whatever the number there is it's looking for works. And then they're like, all right, so here's the flour that works for this thing. And then they start deconstructing it. So they're like, well, let's recreate this cannabinoid and terpene profile, but just with isolates, and give it to them. And then they start taking things out one at a time until they find like what's actually the combination of cannabinoids and terpenes that's like giving them this effect. And they've been on it, Israel, for quite some time.
They're way ahead. They're light years ahead of us.
I saw Dr. Didi Miri speak a couple times at the Cannabis Science Conference that we have here in Portland, typically every August. So I guess that's coming up if they don't cancel it. But that's what he was talking about, and he's one of Raphael Meshulam's like main students, proteges, whatever. So I think once we start doing that in the U.S., or maybe just kind of see what Israel's doing, we'll kind of start to see what's actually causing this entourage effect. But I wouldn't be surprised if these other, lipids or waxes or any other things are aiding it, especially when you're eating it.
Yeah, no question. And I think from just going around the show yesterday, I mean, so many new cannabinoids are coming out, and I think it's fascinating just to think of, 5 years ago, putting some cannabis in a PVC pipe and getting this sort of waxy, oily substance out to yesterday. Now we're talking to people about HHC, and we actually have a couple samples here of some HHC. And for those of you who don't know, HHC is called hexahydrocannabinol.
I believe.
Right, hexahydrocannabinol. And this is probably going to be the new hottest cannabinoid. There's definitely THCO as well. I've tried that too. Main thing is that HHC is effectively your backup safety for anyone involved with Delta 8, because it is fully compliant in nearly every state unless they have some rules about, depending, some states might say no artificially derived cannabinoids, but majority of them are saying none of those ones with the THC in it.
3 letters.
Yeah, if you got that THC in it.
Yesterday, Delta 8, everybody had to put stickers over their sign where it said Delta 8. But I found someone selling openly THCO. Yeah. And there was a couple other, I think I saw someone selling Delta 10 open. It was the Delta 8 was the no-no.
Yeah, Delta 8's the no-no. And so it's a really fascinating time, because there's over 155, I think, identified different cannabinoids right now.
Not including all the synthetic ones. The
yeah.
And the JWHs and...
Yeah, and now it's like we're just starting to unravel all of this. So Eric had the good ideas for us to keep a clean head this morning and try these out and see what they're like. So and to give a little bit of feedback. So let's have a little see here what these are like. We tried them yesterday, but again, when you're at an event, it's sort of hard to see really what the effects are like.
Are we going to set the smoke alarm off in here? Okay. Right on. Yeah, I've.
It's the
been
beauty of
joking.
vapor, right? I mean, it's like more often than not, I haven't been successful in setting up an alarm yet.
I don't think I have either. Try to be cautious though. I'd hate to set an alarm off in such a big hotel.
Yeah, I'll say, hey, Eric came by. I don't know who this guy is. He brought this cannabis stuff and get him out of here. He just started
Right?
smoking in my
I
room.
guess it's legal here. Well, the Delta 8 isn't. That's funny. I mean, we're in this state, Nevada, and the Delta 8 is illegal, but they've got rec shops on every corner and CBD shops on every corner. I feel it. I feel it right in my forehead first. I don't get it as much with Delta 9 anymore, but when I used to do big dabs, I'd get this like feeling of like a pinprick in the center of my brain, and then like blood rushing through my head, kind of.
Yeah, I'm feeling it. I mean, I'm definitely feeling it. I think my lungs could be the terps, but I feel like I feel like it's like a contracting of I don't know how to put it, but
Tightening of the chest.
it's I have a tightening of the chest, very used to like if I took a big dab.
It's
and
expanding.
And this last one was definitely a heavier hit because it wasn't working. But I have that feeling of like when I take a dab and I'm like short of breath is sort of how I feel, which is something that, as funny as it sounds, I think people enjoy.
Absolutely.
I like it's like some people might take that as a negative thing, like oh my god, are you like.
This one feels a little tightening. Some other ones feel a little more like expansive, like it's opening.
Let's have a
your
try.
chest up. Yeah,
So
we'll
we got
trade.
two. We got two of them here, and looks like both of these are from Eye Crusher. Eye Crusher been killing it lately. I mean, the oil's nice and thick. I like that. I do like the fact that it's nice and thick. I definitely feel it in my eyes. I feel
I
it
got
coming
like an
over my
immediate-
eyes.
immediate headband.
Similar to headband. I mean, I'm telling you, headband. I no joke felt like a band around my head. There's no other way to explain it, but like almost like an aura around my head when I smoked that headband stuff.
Have you noticed how like a lot of cannabinoids we don't really know about, they'll always say it's good for glaucoma, like it provides ocular pressure relief.
No.
I've like whenever I was studying cannabinoids, you know, before they were really readily available, or we knew much about them, CBC, CBG, you know, all of them. That's one of the few things that they'll say like as an observed effect that they actually know about is the ocular pressure relief, which I guess they use for glaucoma patients. And I've always wondered if when I feel that headband, if that's ocular pressure relief or
It has something to it.
these are so we got these from two different vendors. They look pretty similar in color. I think
Probably the same oil. Two
I
different
think
vendors.
different terps though.
100%
That one's more
different
like a
terps.
berry, and this is like a.
This is like a melon or
This is more like a.
I think they said it was gelato. It's more of a berry sort of flavor.
Yeah, it's weird, but interesting. It definitely gets
Definitely
a little
feeling-
stoned.
So yeah, there's definitely a stoned feeling. I would say that more on the heavier side, honestly, I would say. And for me, I'm not a very big user, but I'd say it's a stronger feeling of Delta 8 is more, I would say. I would almost say I feel like nice, cozy, relaxed feeling.
Yeah, I don't want to stand up. I feel like very, very
Yeah, more like
firmly
an
seated in my
edible,
chair.
more like a lighter edible indica feeling. That obviously we've only just started, but I feel still pretty clear-headed. You know, still pretty clear-headed. Delta 9, as I said, is something. I don't know. This is nice. I'm enjoying this, honestly. I think it's especially to have it fresh in the morning as opposed to like yesterday with just like so many different cannabinoids.
Right. With Delta 8, when I first started playing with it, I'd smoke it like in the middle of the day or the end of the day, and I'd never feel it because I always had THC, Delta 9 in my system. And then I started doing it first thing in the morning. I got great energy, like go clean your house kind of energy.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. We are slowly, and that's why I just love being a part of this industry because it is so fascinating. It's like we've been given this puzzle that needs to be put together, and there's just so many different components and so many angles to it, and so much opportunity. Whether it's ancillary products, whether it's the terpenes, whether it's cannabinoids, whether it's the fiber, whether it's, you know, the renewable energy, it's just keeps on giving. And I really believe that it's going to help revolutionize this world. Like I genuinely do. And I think that the stuff that we're huffing and puffing on right now, I think in the cannabinoids, I think absolutely has its place. But I think that there's going to be a very big dominant, like much bigger, whether like hempcrete or like other like things that can literally revolutionize the whole world. Paper, for instance.
Have you seen the price of wood recently?
It's ridiculous.
It like tripled over the past 6 months. I'm thinking you could go get some fiber, some wood glue, a hot press, start making plywood.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And well, that really, a lot of this, unfortunately, all comes back to inflation, right? And it comes back to just the ridiculous printing of money that the American government calls quantitative easing, that is effectively just reducing buying power across the board if you're not some of the super wealthy at the very top. And it's just bonkers to see how much, like, specifically lumber has just been going up. Even housing has been going up ridiculously as well. I think like 22% or something.
It's crazy. I bought a house 5-6 years ago. It's more than doubled in value, which
is
awesome.
It's great.
It's
yeah.
But then you're in the situation where it's like, well, if I sold it, I'd have to go buy somewhere else that's also probably doubled in value. And then, you know, if my house has doubled in value in 3 years, and in the last 3 years we've printed, it's like 30% of the money in circulation right now is printed in the last year. So it's like
more money. So far, COVID has cost more money has been spent on COVID than the whole of World War I and II combined.
In today's money? Wow.
Yeah. You can't just take $6 trillion and just saying we need to inject this now. It's like I see it as like, you know, this dead body just sort of being passed out. And you get the electric shock out, and it's like, give them the $6 trillion, and it's like, doof. It's like, okay, we got a heartbeat again. And it's like, oh no, we're still doing the same things again and again and again, and you know, pushing out the debt cycle, and just all of these like ridiculous things that is really coming back to one thing, and I think that is cryptocurrency. And I think that cryptocurrency is now giving us the opportunity to say, you know what, we don't necessarily need to play that. And while there's all these other people up here and they want to be like basically just devaluing our currency, and we have no choice in that matter, nor do we have a choice in where our dollars are spent or anything like that. Well, we could just have Bitcoin instead. And I think I think it really gives a lot of power back to the people.
Where do you see blockchain technology playing the most like important role over the next 5 or 10 years in cannabis? Is it something like VeChain for supply chain tracking? Is it something like NFTs for like strain authentication? Is it what do you think?
Oh my God. I mean, it's just so big to even like, I think just what's the most important, right? It's like, I look at it as like,
getting paid,
there's just so many possible areas of this world that needs like a leg up, really. And I think that the first thing is to probably, I think DeFi is huge, honestly.
Especially
I like
in this cash-only industry. Like, we're unbanked for the most part.
Yeah,
my
66.
My analytical lab's unbanked. They're an analytical lab.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty crazy just to think how privileged we are to have something called a bank, right? And if you just happen to be in a country which is 66% of this world's population doesn't have banking,
but they have smartphones.
Yeah, now it's like if the barriers of entry have just been dropped to basically play in the financial world, and whether if you're the person in El Salvador where $10 is a shit ton of money, you shouldn't really have any different barriers to entry for somebody who has $1 billion. And now this is going to have a borderless payment system that isn't governed by any government body and can't be devalued because it can't be just printed. And so it gives financial freedom to people to make a decision of where to put their value or their energy realistically. And I look at my son now, he's 3, and I think he'll probably he's probably going to be in the generation of like, they'll be talking about, you used to carry around paper in your pocket, and that was must have been an odd thing. Like, what did you do when you had like...
When we were younger, our parents carried around checkbooks.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I turned 13 and got my first bank account, and they gave me a checkbook, and I never used it. And, since then, debit cards have become readily available, and now there's the payment apps, Venmo and Zelle and PayPal. But, yeah, you're definitely right. It's going to be a huge change financially. And, for instance, I send some hemp products to Europe.
Sure.
I've got customers who, when they send me a wire, not only does it cost them $30, but it takes like 7 days to get to me. That doesn't make any sense. I mean...
Whoa, we just had the biggest noise pop into our headphones from the computer there.
Yeah, it was pretty
It
scary.
was like, holy shit. Keep the cool. Oh,
So,
whoa.
like 10 minutes later or so,
Yeah.
any changed effects? I feel pretty much... It might have
I
actually
feel pretty high, honestly. But as I said, so for me, I smoke more D8. I have sort of been enjoying it. Went to a few of the dispensaries here actually, but I'd say that I'm feeling noticeable effects is what I would say. And yeah, I feel like my knees tapping and like more like elevated, I suppose, or more like wanting to like move and do stuff, I suppose is how I'm feeling, more maybe up.
Yeah, I feel more up than when I initially did it. It was initially very relaxing. And my neck and shoulders are really relaxed, which I can tell just because they're normally, a stress place where I carry TEDs. Yeah, no, I guess I feel a little stoned. That's pretty interesting. I've been following Dr. Mark Scaldone over the years. He's on Hash Church, and he and I have gone back and forth. When I was developing D8 stuff a couple years ago, he was helping me with some testing and stuff. And he's had it for a while. They patented it, which, I mean, it's been patented a few times in the past. I think they just had a method they patented. And he never, at least to my recollection, mentioned it being like THC or having a high. And I know
CBND is another one apparently that's supposed to have a similar effect.
I heard, and I don't know if there's I don't think there's COAs for this yet.
So this is, yeah,
And
you're
somebody
bringing up
else
a
told
very
me-
good point right now.
Somebody else told me this is 3 different stereoisomers, which I think the next comment in the thread said, can you only not have 2 stereoisomers? But I don't know, maybe they're just different positions. I'm not a chemist. I just play one in a lab.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, right? What exactly is it? I think, again, because there's no standards for it, they can see the peaks on the chromatograph, right? That basically says, boom, this is to this standard, or this at least is coming off at those time frames, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume.
Right, isn't it the light? So light,
basically,
basically, as it comes down, the light refracts through it, and then depending on the time,
yeah.
it's
The
when you
retention
know, okay, well, this is CBD, this is THC, this is HHC because it's so far down the line or whatever it is.
So you should be able to do that. I mean, with an HPLC, I would think you kind of have to have a standard to work with to base it off of. But MS, there's like electric libraries, I believe, that you can reference. But I don't know exactly. I haven't seen the COA. I don't think they have COAs. I would hope they have some chromatography they're sharing with people. But we might be putting the cart in front of the horse. It's kind of like the first couple months D8 really popped off. everything was purple and red and really low numbers and really high D9. And now it's gotten a lot better, but I'm not sure I would have told someone in my family to go buy D8 6 months ago or a year ago. And now I wouldn't feel as worried about it, but I'd still, have some.
There's a lot of businesses out there now, and I think people are beginning to get more educated. I'm definitely stretching a good bit now. I feel pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, it's real interesting. It's pretty similar to D8, D9, pretty similar body and head feelings, but little different. Still got kind of the headband feeling. But yeah, it's definitely took the edge off my coffee. I was a little jittery and it kind of chilled it out.
So we'll see. This is the next cannabinoid, and I think this is going to be a big one. CBG sort of flopped.
Doesn't do anything.
It doesn't really do. It's good for your gut, right? But it's not doesn't seem to have. Again, it's just we don't know yet. There hasn't been enough studies.
As well, so I don't know if smoking it cures COVID, but it might, because they say COVID lives in your throat and respiratory system, and then if the CBGA is able to kill MRSA, I mean, who knows? Who knows?
But that CBGA would be turned into CBG by the time it got in there, right?
This is true. I don't know if the CBG has the same antimicrobial properties, but it might. THCP is starting to float around too, and CBDP. I don't know much about the CBDP's effects, but the THCP.
But it both get you seriously whacked though.
I saw someone on LinkedIn today who's selling some, and he said, took a few too many hits, and now it feels like I'm on mushrooms. So we'll see how long that one sticks around.
Yeah, I think it's too strong. I think that the company has a responsibility to not release. It's like releasing fentanyl.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're mixing it in at 1%, and I noticed some of the
1%.
I'm seeing stuff that's 1%, 80% delta 8, and then some other stuff as well. And it's at least for me, I'd probably rather it in a more inert cannabinoid, something like CBD or CBT or CBC or something that's not going to really, because then if I'm smoking the THCP, I'm probably feeling the delta 8 as well.
Have you tried or heard anything about delta 10?
I've heard a lot about it. I've stayed away from it because every time I see someone selling it, I'm like, can I get a COA? And it's 20% delta 10. And I think the problem with it in the hemp industry is, from my understanding, you have to start with delta 9. You can't do it from delta 8. And technically all delta 8 goes through delta 9 as well, but in the fucking flask. Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to curse on your show.
No, whatever about it. It's all right. You can do your thing.
But
shame on you.
Right? It's family friendly. We're family friendly. But it's you're not storing D9 somewhere. But if you're going from CBD to D9 to D10, maybe that all happens in the same flask too, all at once. I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with the process.
Well, I think it's a little ridiculous to be banning just certain cannabinoids based on the fact that they're cousins of a family member, right? Delta. It's just well, if it has delta in there, we got to get it out.
And you can see what these small changes can do. The difference between CBD and delta 8 and delta 9. It's literally the same. It's an isomer, the same molecule, but 2 of the 3 are very psychoactive. And then you can make some small changes and get to THCP, and you're 100 times more potent, and apparently it lasts for 3 days. So I see what you mean. We can't necessarily just be throwing all these cannabinoids out there, because it's not necessarily. I mean, if the general consumer just picks up random cannabinoids at a gas station, eventually that's going to be problematic. But I'm also worried about all these other side reactions that are happening.
There comes a point.
What we're looking for, is it these quinones or these HHUs or who knows?
Yeah, or even just you had a poor reaction. So I think, yeah, that stuff with the guy Ion, what was it on
Ion Trap.
the Ion Trap?
Yeah.
Yeah, what a lot of shit, huh? Like him versus King of the Kush. But I think it was a quite a unique thing. But I did think it brought up that hey, again, it was obviously all blown out of proportion, like some of these other compounds, the cresols or the phytols.
P-cymene.
Yeah, there didn't seem to be. It didn't seem there. We did. I think that the KCA did that random, like, pull from 10 samples,
and that made me feel a lot better.
Yeah, so it's just like a lot of horseshit.
Yeah, but I think, like I said, 6 months ago, a year ago, that might not have been the case. 6 months ago or a year ago, when everything was purple and red and not properly fully converted or cleaned up, and nobody was doing any sort of post-processing, I mean, maybe those things were there. Or maybe those things were present in the literature because they were using weird shit in the labs, like organometallics or, other more, gross stuff.
Yeah, and so I think it's important. I think should there be regulation? I mean, I think that it's important to have standards to abide by. I think that's very important, and I think that I think things can get dangerous quick.
And I don't think we'll self-regulate like Ion Trap was like, you guys should be self-regulating. Push the bad actors out. And that's like, you realize everybody's, especially with hemp and D8, it's like there's too much of us, and people buy shit too. Like, you go to a dispensary, there's all sorts of low-grade products I wouldn't touch that people buy up.
But there's people
day.
like that, right? And to each their own. And I think everybody has a budget, and I think that the main thing is that people are informed that they make the right decision for them. And whether that's, a $5 gram or if it's a $20 gram, I think that everything has its place, and I think that if it's at a really low grade, let's extract the oil and put it into edibles, right? Or distill it and pure, and so we can really utilize this whole entire plant as cleanly as possible, really. And this thing grows so quick. I mean, like, it really grows like a weed.
It's crazy. And there's some parts of the world, equatorial places, you just all year round, fiber, seed, oil. I mean, they made cars out of it at one point. Well, not in production, but the first Model T, I believe, was made out of hemp and was supposed to be like indestructible. But they weren't driving too fast back then. See how that holds up at 100 miles an hour.
Not looking too good there.
Or maybe who knows?
And
that hempcrete with lime, that stuff's like crazy durable and super lightweight. And I think it's flame retardant.
Yeah. There's it works well as insulation. Like, it's so versatile. It's unbelievable. Animal bedding. I mean, you name it. There's just, I think the hemp plastics, once it really comes in, is just huge.
Biodegradable hemp plastics.
Yeah, we've got that on our cartridges, not on our carts, on our blunts, and
nice.
Yeah, just really, really nice to be able to know that it's going to decompose and it's just not going to sit somewhere forever, basically.
Yeah, I'd like to see the industry move away from a little of the unnecessary packaging and I don't know. It's I guess it's not too crazy, but we use pretty minimal packaging and try to use rechargeable batteries and refillable cartridges and that kind of stuff.
That's what I don't like. I don't like the disposables, right? These one-time use is just like, yeah, it feels nice in your hand, but can we have like a recharge, and like, can we just get different carts that go in there? Like, why do we need to throw away the battery?
Right.
Why even give it charger? Like, you can recharge it once or whatever. I'm sitting here with one of your extracts, Eric.
Yeah.
And it looks pretty dank here, and it's hemp.
Yeah, so that's a Sour Lifter from Oregon CBD. We made that about 9 months ago after the last hemp harvest. We do a pretty small scale, pretty small batch. We went through the fields that we have access to that we make our terpenes out of, and basically hand selected a couple hundred plants and worked from there. And it was great. My partner and I, by the time we were done pulling plants, our noses were both just like black, covered in resin. We were really getting in there. But yeah, we're real happy with that. We have this new license from the OLCC that allows us to bring hemp products with up to 5% THC into the recreational market, into metric.
Nice.
And that's one of our products that we do. And I think it stands out, and it's interesting because most hemp products have to be below 0.3 THC, and you don't really get that entourage effect. Most people are working with isolates, distillates, and then watering it down. And then in the recreational market, most people don't want to spend their time and energy on CBD stuff, especially in this day and age when hemp and CBD stuff's all over the fucking, swearing again, all over the, all over the place. So there's no reason to do it. But this, much like D8, I was doing it in the morning. It just has a little bit of THC in there, but much more, 15 times more than anything on the hemp shelf. So it's like you still feel it a bit, but it doesn't get you too stoned, and you still get the full, full spectrum entourage effect. And we're also doing hemp RSO, which, most people can't do because it's, going to be 5% when you extract it down. Because for those listening, if you don't know, hemp typically, when you harvest it, it's going to be 0.3, you hope, percent THC, but a lot of times it's closer to 1%, really.
At least.
But, it is what it is. Some people do get stuff that's below 0.3 that they use for flour, and a lot of it goes.
So much work to get it to the 0.3 or below. Just so many processes to get it there. It's like ridiculous.
It's a problem. So then when you concentrate a flour, you're going to typically have a 5 to 10% multiplication of your starting cannabinoids. So if we had 0.5% THC in a flower, our extract's going to be about 5% THC. So it's been interesting. A lot of older people like it because they don't want to necessarily get into dabs, because the THC dabs get you really high. But they're starting to learn that it's sometimes easier than flour to smoke. You don't have to roll it up, and it's cleaner just because you're removing all those plant lipids and waxes, which, like we said earlier, might serve some benefit. There's definitely different effects when you smoke flour versus concentrates. But for me personally, I typically like the concentrates because flour just feels dirty at this point. I always say it's like if you smoke a brand new bong, fresh clean water with a bowl of flour, you wouldn't want to drink that bong water. Like one hit, it already tastes and smells gross. But a dab rig, I've had dab rigs around that I don't change the water for weeks, and it's still clear and doesn't smell weird or anything.
Yeah, because it's clean, filtered.
We've pulled all that crap out, and especially
and there's
now that
so
we're
much
using-
crap, people. For those of you who don't know, there's so much crap
Well, if
from
your
just
target molecules, 15, 20, sometimes crazy high 30%. That means you have 70% plant, cellulose, lipids, waxes, fiber, pigments.
just everything. Ants,
spider
insects.
mites, bird poop,
just
especially the outdoor stuff.
just the outdoor stuff, garbage just happened to be around there.
And we can even remove pesticides in some instances.
Yes.
And some people get scared of the CRC. And sometimes, depending on how you do it, you pull desirable terpenes that you would have rather kept. But in general, I don't see what the problem is with having a cleaner, more refined product. That's the same reason I started smoking concentrates. And back when I did that, people were really skeptical of concentrates too. And now people are more skeptical of concentrates that look cleaner. But corn oil or soybean oil or olive oil, they look real gross when you initially extract them. We use the same powders, the same filtration techniques to clean our oil that we cook with and eat all the time. And people, for whatever reason, get scared about it in this new product.
I think they're just not informed, and I think that there's also bad actors that get a lot of the attention, and then it suddenly turns into just a people are afraid and they don't want CRC, but then they also don't want dark extracts. And so it's like it's a funny thing sometimes where it's an even medium. I think you have to find the nice balance of it, or fire in, fire out. I still think, even though it still acts as a point of filtration, right, and it does clean up your extract. So, I mean,
it's pretty minimal loss.
Yeah,
like we're really not
5 to 10%
much. I mean, we're pulling, pigments and sometimes extra fats and lipids and sometimes some terpenes, but it's really, we're not adding anything and we're not taking away anything that's super important. I know this one lady who she really likes RSO, but she doesn't like it like too clear looking. She's like, I need the chlorophyll for it to work, which I don't know, maybe she does and she knows something I don't. But I'm like, go chew on some grass. Like, go eat
the chlorophyll.
some basil.
Yeah, there's definitely been something though about the power of RSO in the way that it is, and
it's crazy.
It's unbelievable what it can do, and I think there's so many angles where we don't know. We just don't know.
And I don't know, compared to like distillate, that might still be considered full spectrum. That's more cleaned up than RSO. Like, I don't know if anybody's ever done a side by side on fighting cancer or whatever else they're doing with the RSO. With distillate, maybe they're still getting better effects with the full spectrum RSO that's still got the lipids and the waxes and the heads and the tails and everything else that you would have pulled out when you made the distillate. I'd be real curious to see. But then again, like I said, like with the Israel case, it's like you got to make sure it's from the same plant. You got to make sure it's like the same crude versus the same distillate with the same kind of people, same control group. You can't just say distillate versus RSO, one's better, one's not, because I'm sure in some instances it could go either direction.
Yeah, I think there's no question full spectrum is better, and ideally as much as the plant as much of the plant as possible without the actual biomass, I think is like the.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see the carts that are 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. The CBD and the THC Delta 8 and Delta 9 and this HHC and just a full spattering.
What are your thoughts? We've been here now puffing on this for maybe like 20, 30 minutes now. What do you think is your feelings and effects after puffing on this HHC for a while?
I've got good energy, still feel a little stoned, still have the headband, feel almost like I'm floating a little, like I feel kind of lightweight. All in all, pretty impressive. I might add that to my regimen. I don't know exactly how different it feels from Delta 8 or Delta 9. I mean, it's really similar feeling, honestly. I'm not sure what would make me reach for that
good enough
over the Delta 9.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, if you had them in front of you, which would you choose?
Which would I choose?
See, this is the thing for me. Well, it just goes back to, if it was in a world where maybe they're not legal, then your options change. You'll always go for the HHC if it was no option at all, right? That's sort of the.
I'm going
to
Texas. I'm going to Texas right after this, and it's like, I guess this doesn't have a COA and a label in a box that says HHC. So for all they know, if they pull me over, that's Delta 9. But it's like, I'd feel a lot more comfortable with this HHC than bringing back some Nevada mids.
Yeah.
But I've got my CBDA live resin with me, so we're good.
All right, well, I think we'll call it that, man.
Time to go back to champs.
Yeah, time to go back to champs. Tell us again, Eric, where can we find you? Where can we get your terpenes?
You can find me at fatdogcbd.com, or my Instagram's Pharmax Oregon.
P with a P.
Oh yeah, PHARMEX, like pharmaceutical extractions.
Killer. Well, look, thank you very much. It was very enjoyable, and We'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right, peace.
Cool.